I would like to call on Greg Geist to present the budget, please.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here today. I want to start by thanking Erin Blue and her team, as well as the West Management team, for coming up with a proposed budget that I think really hits the mark as far as long-range planning, capital investments, and looking far out into the future to avoid the pitfalls that face many utilities like our own. And I also want to thank the board, because if the West 190 partnership wasn't formed back in 2018, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today. What we're presenting today is based on a 10-year financial plan and a 20-year capital plan. Before the 190, we could never have looked that far out into the future. And the consequences of that was the last major infrastructure investment that West made back in the 2009-11 timeframe resulted in rates doubling over the course of 2 to 3 years. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag and say we're going to be asking for 5% rate increases year over year moving forward. And I know I need to justify that, and I'll get right to it. But this is a positive thing in that we are looking far out. We don't see any trains coming. We think that with reasonable and regular rate increases, we will be able to continue to provide the services that we provide in a pretty challenging environment. And I'll explain more about that. Can you get the slideshow up? All right, this is our mission statement. I just want to remind folks we are 100% funded through user charges, so no general fund. It's all ratepayer dollars that we're talking about today. So when we talk about a 5% rate increase, that's not a tax increase, that's a rate increase. Next slide. These are some of the stats, who we are and what we do. We have 116 employees. We serve about 190,000 people in Clackamas County, the urbanized portions of Clackamas County. We have a whole lot of pipes, we have a whole lot of catch basins, and we have 5 facilities that we own and operate. So I want to call your attention when we talk about rates. We have 3 different rate zones. We'll start with the easiest one, and that's rate zone 3, the light green. That was a surface water only area. It's fairly rural Clackamas County, and it only covers the Tualatin watershed, and that was a result of a state action back in the 90s and the county's response to that action. Rate zone 2 and 2A in the northern part of our district, that is, rate zone 2A is Milwaukee and Johnson City. So Milwaukee and Johnson City both own and operate their own collection systems, and all we do is provide wastewater treatment for them. Rate zone 2, the darker blue, that's the city of Happy Valley and unincorporated urbanized Clackamas County. In that area, from a wastewater standpoint, we own and operate the collection system, the collection and conveyance system, as well as do the treatment. So, and we charge for the various services that we provide. So in rate zone 2A, we only charge for that treatment service. Rate zone 2, we charge for both a conveyance fee and a treatment fee. Rate zone 1 is the cities of Happy Valley, West Lynn, and Gladstone, and that is also what we call a wholesale relationship where they own and operate their own collection systems, and we just treat the wastewater. Some major accomplishments, I'll just tick through a couple of these. We started up our new cogeneration at our Tri-City facility. Some folks were able to attend that event. We recently, thank you, developed IGAs with 5 of our 6 cities to tackle regional inflow and infiltration and support that work, which will save, by our calculations, $100 million over the next 20 years. And we completed the master planning in support of a 20-year capital plan, which is what this budget and future budgets will be based on. Solids handling project at Tri-City is complete. We finished the improvements at Kellogg to the tune of $22 million. And importantly, we permitted 815 new dwelling units, mostly in Happy Valley. Growth is rapid. and I'll talk more about that. And then we developed the 10-year financial strategy, again, that this budget and future budgets will be based on. And then last year, we reduced our planned rate increases, and we're able to achieve a 0% to 1.5% rate increase for last year. So we call that a win. All right, just a couple Performance-Clackamas things I wanted to mention. As far as our success goes, our beneficial reuse, our target's been 85%. We crossed that this year, and we continue to do a good job. Our streams are relatively healthy. Our goal was 30% of our local streams. We were unsure whether that was reasonable or achievable, and we're seeing success there. Not all due to our actions, but it looks good for water quality. All right, the next slide, I want to call your attention to, oh wait. This is different than what I have in front of me. Strange. Anyway, I wanted to call your attention. This is the program, where the money goes by program. Capital delivery is $30.2 million. That's really the story of today, is how we're going to build capital moving forward. So I wanted to call your attention to that. And these priorities align with the county's strategic initiatives, particularly strong infrastructure and safe, healthy, and secure communities. And as you'll see, capital spending really is driving the bus. As far as issues and challenges goes, we're not really unique, except for growth in some areas. We have aging infrastructure that was built in the 70s, in some cases rising costs, which we all know is a big deal right now. And then again, that rapid growth in Rate Zone 2, in particular Happy Valley. And just to give you some framework for that, Happy Valley is the #1 fastest growing community in Oregon. Oregon City is 10th. So we have a tremendous amount of growth happening in our service area. And then last March, we saw the highest rate of inflation in 40 years. So finally, while the budget covers a period of just 1 year, that 1 year is the first of a multi-year financial strategy and plan that we worked with this committee on that will ensure WES is positioned for long-term financial stability, which the committee was the WES Advisory Committee. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. Next slide, I wanted to call your attention to the big blue slices of the pie. And the takeaway here is we have very large beginning fund balances. And we're going to need those, and I'll explain why. But you'll see from revenues versus expenses, we are going to be cutting into those beginning this year and in subsequent years. So you will see those beginning fund balances dwindle over time as we invest in capital. All right. So I wanted to call your attention to a couple things on this slide. In the far right-hand column, beginning fund balance up 13%. Up 13%. That's primarily an increase. Oh, wait. Oh, right. That was an increase, a carryover of beginning fund balances, and we're seeing a rebound in commercial accounts and things like that. You'll see a 36% change in the all other revenue sources, and that was primarily a $800,000 grant from the Energy Trust of Oregon for the cogeneration. You'll see 100% change for revenue from bonds and other debts, and that's a SRF, State Revolving Fund loan disbursement that we're expecting this year. Also, you'll see under capital outlay an increase of 20%. That's a $5 million increase in capital spending that we intend to spend this year. So when you look at the total expense number change, second column from the right, the $25 million, that's primarily due to $18.7 million ending fund balance and the $5 million in capital outlay and an increase in capital contingencies. Moving on. So just another way to look at this, I wanted to call attention to the middle column. I know that you guys were interested in seeing the ARPA dollars. We received $700,850 last year, and we don't intend to receive any this year. We're also, if you look at the bottom total FTE, we're not proposing any increases in FTE this year. And, yeah. And as you would expect to see, this is looking at operations, and so the $11,696,000 on the right-hand column, about 3/4 of the way down, you would expect to see the bulk in operations and maintenance. Moving on. Operating revenues, we're seeing some upticks, resumption in commercial accounts, moderate overall growth when we look across the district, even though we have very high growth in Happy Valley. And this is assuming a 5% or a moderate increase in rates, so that is contingent. And then an inflationary increase in SDC charges, which we will get to. And then you see that other revenue, that's the Energy Trust of Oregon, $800,000. Moving on, I just wanted to call attention, we're seeing an overall increase of $5.4 million or 7.8%. The majority of that increase is due to the $5 million in capital spending and completion of 2 major projects. And I want to also call attention that the combined increase, when you look at in the other categories outside of capital, is 0.85%. And that, I think, reflects staff's work to really keep costs down. We're not asking for additional FTE. We're not asking for more operating expenses. And this is in the face of, we're looking at 40% increases in chemical costs. So we've really tightened our belt from the operations side and absorbed those increased costs that we're seeing out in the market. Just to look at our capital budget, $29.3 million, and that is split. When we think about capital investment, we need to build for growth, and we need to take care of what we've got. So when you look at the projects that are listed there, the wet weather outfall, that's for growth. That's to handle additional growth moving forward. The Kellogg Creek project of $4.4 million, that's rehab and modernization. So is the collection system projects, and then the Clackamas Interceptor program, though, that is a growth-related project, so that would be an SDC eligible project. And when you look at the total project costs, we're looking at spending, say, $6.5 million on the wet weather outfall, but that's going to be a $52 million project. The Clackamas Interceptor program, we're looking to spend $1.3 million this year, but that's overall almost a $40 million project. So this stuff adds up, and and comes over time. On the surface water side, it's about $1 million, several projects, including the Three Creeks projects. Won't get into that. And then I wanted to show what our ending fund balance kind of trajectory is. We've been carrying ending fund balances and building reserves for the future. We did the Series 1 or the Series 2021 debt issued in $48 million in 2021, and so this year is really kind of the peak, or last year was the peak this year in our reserves, and I'll show you how we're going to spend those down. So if you look at the dashed black line, that is our current reserves, and this is looking at our 10-year financial plan. So we have $330 million in sewer outlay to maintain the system reliability and accommodate growth. We also need to meet debt coverages and maintain some level of reserves. And so what this would do, again, with the 5% rate increases, would ensure reasonable, predictable rate increases, and then we would harmonize rates in 2030-31, which I will explain a little bit more. But the operative thing here is that black dashed line, and that is the reserves, the savings that we've built up over years, knowing that this was coming, and how we spend that down over time. So this is looking at rates and how rates will be harmonized by 2031. This does include the 5% rate increases year over year, and then in 9 years we reach that harmonized rate. And so this is an example of rate zone 2, where they're carrying the legacy debt that Rate Zone 1, Oregon City, Westland, Gladstone doesn't need to carry. And so over time, we want everyone to pay the same for the same service. So you'll see that for the local collection fee and the wastewater treatment fee, so the full service that we provide from a wastewater standpoint, we're projecting that number to be $60.20 in 2031. So keep that number in mind because it's going to be important in a minute. And just to remind folks, the different rate components, we have the wastewater treatment, we have the collection and conveyance, and then the legacy debt fees that you just saw, and the various cities that, or areas that are covered by those. Okay, so here's where the rubber meets the road. As far as a typical monthly customer in Rate Zone 1, they would see their bill increase by $1.25, Rate Zone 2, $1.10, Rate Zone 2A, 0, and Rate Zone 3, 25 cents. So that would be a 5% increase to wastewater and a 5% increase to surface water. And just for context, Clean Water Services over in Washington County did a 4% rate increase and a 9% increase in SDCs. Oak Lodge on the sanitary side did a 7% increase this year, and Clackamas River Water and Sunrise Water Authority both did 5%. So this is what it looks like when you look at each individual community and those that are carrying debt service versus those that aren't. The highlighted yellow is the actual percentage for Gladstone, Oregon City, West Linn. You'll see Milwaukee and Johnson City because of the reduction in the legacy debt fee. They're not looking at a rate increase this year. Happy Valley and unincorporated 1.77, 1.78%, and then you'll see the closer to 5% for Rate Zone 1. And you can also see below 2 lines below the highlighted line, those were the effective rate increases for last year. So last year we really held off on that. And just to be in context with our peers, so if you look at Rate Zone 1 retail and Rate Zone 2 retail, those are the two numbers that are going to be merging over the next 9 years. Rate Zone 2 retail carries a legacy debt. Rate Zone 1 retail does not. So those numbers will converge. The other thing, recall that our total for both wastewater and, treatment and collection in 2031, 9 years from now, is going to be $60.20. If you look at the chart, the rates of our peers today, many are already over that. So I'm very confident that in 9 years, we're still going to be definitely at the lower end of the pack when it comes to rates regionally. This is our surface water rate relative to our peers. We're in the process of completing a storm system master plan that's going to give us a roadmap for the future, similar to what we're presenting here today on the sanitary side. So we will need to have a conversation in future years about our rates and whether our rates can support what our surface or storm system master plan says we need to do over the next 10 to 20 years. Right now, we're very, very competitive, lowest in the region. I just want to remind folks we do have low-income discount programs and call out that we are happy to be participating in the LEWA program with the health department, and that's just a new way for us to give relief to ratepayers using some federal dollars. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about SDCs. So before we came up with this proposal, this year-over-year rate increase and financial plan, and before we had our 20-year capital plan, we agreed that we needed to have a policy around rates. And the policy is currently that we will adjust for inflation on an annual basis, and that index that we use is the Northwest Construction Cost Index. For this year, that construction, well, the way we looked at it, was 5.9%. So if we weren't sitting here talking about a 5% rate increase and we were simply following our current policy, we would be talking about a 5.9% rate increase, because that's what the data tells us. We think that if we can implement this year-over-year 5%, that we can smooth out that inflationary issue that we seem to be experiencing now, and that on the long term we'll be fine. I will say Clean Water Services over in Washington County looked at the data a little bit differently. I think through March or maybe just looked at this past March, and they enacted a 9% increase in their SDCs, which is directly tied to cost of construction. So that's my last slide. I just want to emphasize, I think we have a long-term plan that protects our ratepayers from rate spikes and maintains and builds the infrastructure our ratepayers depend on.
All right. Thank you, Director Geist. Do any of the members have any questions? Chair Smith?
Yeah, I have a question, and Paul, I see your button is on. So I guess, Commissioners, we would just raise our hand to the chair who's sitting down there. I do have a couple of questions about your rate increase. Big surprise, huh? My main question is, are your rate increases proportional to growth? Because you cite a 40% increase in your chemicals, which I understand that's happening all across the board in every single sector right now in America. But for instance, Happy Valley has, I noticed, the lowest rate increase on your chart. But you also said they are the highest growth area. How do those two correlate?
Do you want to take that, Erin?
Sure. So the rates that we charge in any part of our service area relate to the service provided. So Happy Valley is paying for wastewater treatment and collection. They're also paying this third component of the wastewater rate, which is the legacy debt component. Is that better?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Just to restate while I'm more audible, the rates that we charge in any part of our service area are for the services that are provided to that part of the service area. So Happy Valley receives a higher level of service than Rate Zone 1, which is Oregon City, Gladstone, and Westland, and Milwaukee and Johnson City in Rate Zone 2A. Those cities only receive treatment service. In Happy Valley, we provide treatment and collection service. We also have this third component of the rate, which is the legacy debt component. That's the debt that was held by CCSD1 before WES was formed, and which is only the responsibility of Rate Zone 2. So it's not so much related to growth as it is related to the level of service provided and the fact that we're able to decrease the legacy debt component, which offsets a part of the increases in the two other components, the treatment and collection rates. Happy Valley does pay for growth through SDC fees. So this year we have $6.5 million budgeted in SDCs. The majority of that is coming from Happy Valley.
So messaging going forward, for somebody who doesn't understand everything you said, and I'm not sure I understand everything as you explained it, we're looking at Happy Valley, the fastest growing city in the state of Oregon, and the lowest rate increase to cover the services. Yes, I understand SDCs very well, but still that area is expanding. Greg, can you explain it a little better?
I can do it simpler, I think, because
Thank you.
the short answer is, as Erin said, the SDCs are being, the money for dealing with growth is being generated in Happy Valley.
But SDCs are a one-time cost.
Yes.
We're talking over years. You're going to raise your rates 5% each year until 2031. That still does not compute to me.
It's because of the legacy debt. So that as the debt goes down, we head for that rate harmonization in 2031, we just need to do the math. Mm-hmm. So you could also say, well, they've been overpaying because they've been paying too much on the debt, or we've been holding out more than we could have or should have on the debt. But we do need to get those levelized so everybody's paying the same. And as far as being fair, I mean, that was the point of the regionalization back in 2018. Yes, some areas, pretend we're a city, some areas are going to be growing and some are not. But everybody pays the same. And those, well, you could say, well, I don't want to pay for growth out in Happy Valley. The fact is, Happy Valley, all those new customers are coming in and paying to rehabilitate the equipment that other customers have been using for the last 30 years.
In the form of SDCs?
In the form of rates.
Rates and SDCs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, just to clarify terminology-wise, there's rates and charges. I would say let's use those two terms. So rates are what an existing customer pays, whether they be commercial, industrial, or residential. And then system development charges. So charges are the one-time fee that is governed by Oregon Revised Statute, and there's a very complex methodology for how those can be calculated, and paying for growth. Is how that works. So the rates are for any existing customer, and then the charges are paid through development and essentially get passed on to the customer of a new home.
I understand that. Yeah, thank you for the explanation. It looks disproportionate on your chart. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, well, this is fascinating math if you get down in the weeds. And I've been following this a long time, and I know that we're not getting 100% recovery rate on our SDCs. No one does, and if we did, that'd be an awfully high SDC. And I understand the benefit of rehabilitating some of the existing base and so forth. So I understand that's a delicate one. I'm not here to judge one way or another or opine one way or another on where that balance is. But I've been on the commission for 12 years. I've been a part of this board for 12 years for this district, or the 3 districts. Greg, you've been here part of that time, not all of it. And one of my long-standing issues, to some degree, has kind of been addressed with this SDCs to some degree. But the one standing one that I've got just heartburn over, and that is on the surface water side. And I've been advocating for a long time and kind of nudging, trying to get more emphasis on the existing infrastructure we have, or lack thereof, for surface water issues. So my first question, just really quick before I go on, I have more. How much does that surface water rate generate for Area 2?
I don't know off the top of my head how much on an annual. So I'd have to do the math.
Okay.
And it's in here. It's available. I mean, we know how many customers we have, and we know what our monthly rate is. So maybe about $6 million.
What?
$6 million.
About $6 million. Okay. So $1 million is in your capital on page 123. $1 million of that is for capital expenditures. Okay. So let's say Clackamas Road pretty well. Okay. I'm going to put myself in their shoes, which I have done for a long time, even before being on this commission. Been there when they sandbagged out there. Been there before the development around them occurred and more housing, more impervious surfaces were constructed. And they're still sandbagging under heavy rains. You and I have been out there this year.
Yep.
Right. And Ron as well. So my issue is I appreciate the magnitude and the significance and the stewardship for the Carly Creek project. I understand that. But I'll just tell you, I'm a little bit bothered that that's not the Clackamas Road issue and other areas where there's some localized things for a small amount of money. Let's just say it's $8 million. For a small amount of money, whether that's capital or whether that's maintenance, we could have satisfied that. We could have rectified a number of that. But it's been 12 years. And it's still the same. Mm-hmm. That area, for example, as an example, that area is still the same. So if I'm an existing customer, I live on Clackamas Road, hypothetically, which I don't. I don't live anywhere near there. I'm paying for the rehabilitation for the existing infrastructure for wastewater. I'm paying the $8 fee for surface water. Mm-hmm. I'm still sandbagging. I have a small amount of money, relatively, to $8 million annually, right? And I'm still not seeing really any infrastructure going my way. And now here comes the Three Creeks project. I feel I've been forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so I just want to say that I have an issue with that there hasn't been the emphasis. Is there a standalone surface water committee focused on this particular issue? That $8 million. Do we have a committee that is focused on that?
It wasn't. I believe she said $6 million.
Okay, $6 million.
And that includes, excuse me, everything, operating and everything. And yeah, it is an issue. And that's why we're completing a surface water master plan, storm system master plan. And 5 of the 10, we have a draft, and 5 of the 10 highest priority projects are in that area that we're talking about right now. We know it's an issue. We applied for funding through the ARPA dollars, or at least put a request in for that. And as soon as, and I mentioned that our surface water rates relative to our peers in the region are very, very low. And so we need to adopt that storm system master plan and then look at how we're going to fund that infrastructure with our current rate and SDC structure. That is the next conversation with the board when it comes to surface water. I understand those folks are frustrated, but the same way that we're able now to come to you with a 10-year financial plan and based on a 20-year CIP, is we did the work up front to study it. It's not always what it seems, to the homeowner as far as what the solution needs to be. So we need to get the engineering and the analysis done. We need to get the plan adopted. We need to get it funded, and then we will proceed with those. I will say, in defense of the Three Creeks project, that project was part of an SRF loan that we used to build the solids handling complex. And DEQ has a special, basically it was free money, about over $1 million, to be used for things like that. And so we're using that money for a project that DEQ found acceptable for us to participate in this program, a surface water add-on, I guess, where they forgive interest rates over the course of the loan and just give you that money if you do these qualified surface water projects. So that's the source of that funding.
Yeah. So I'll just close with this. I don't want to beat this up, but on page 127, you got your capital projects listed. Some of these projects, as you know, you shared with me and Ron did as well. I've been on the books for a long time to fix this area. The projects are already there. They're identified with some capital. Granted, they need, as you mentioned, further engineering and everything, but why, if they're already on the books and they're already identified, why haven't we moved on that? I don't think we need a master plan to move on something that's already been identified. And there's just a paltry $750,000 for capital for 23-24, and $990,000 for this year in this budget. And I don't know how much of that is going to be generated for those fixes. So I just very uncomfortable, and if I need to make a stink about it every budget year, I will. But we're just not getting any traction. 12 years is a long time. Thank you.
All right. Does the committee have any other questions? Commissioner Skulls.
Yeah, Chair Morrow, I have a question. Mr. Geis, on page 9, on West Labor, you have a small increase over 21-22, and it's 1.8% increase. Does that include step increases, pay increases for personnel, and something for cost of living increase for 22-23?
Yes, it does. We just managed to offset that through vacancy savings and other efficiencies.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I will say, again, thank you. Part of that very, very tiny increase in operations was a result of the contract hauling that we were able to do.
Oh, good. Outstanding. Thank you very much.
All right. The committee have any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public testimony. The clerk will now run this portion of the program.
Thank you. Tony, do we have anybody registered to speak?
There's no one presently registered to speak. I will enable the raise hand feature at this time. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Mr. Chair, I do not have any hands raised.
All right. Thank you. I will now close the public hearing. Does the committee members have any other questions or discussions? Commissioner Skull.
Yes, sir. Coming in here this morning, my concern was the relationship between revenue fund balance and your capital outlay over the next 10 years. You explained that pretty well, the 5% increase annually, but you will modify that based on a cost of living adjustment in some years, correct?
Right, we're looking, it's a 10-year financial projection. We're going to revisit this. I don't expect this board to say,
Right.
oh, we're going to do for the next 10 years, obviously.
Sure.
We're going to have to revisit this yearly, but we think that if unless something very strange happens with the economy or interest rates, that will get us through, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question or discussion points? Okay, I'm going to close the discussion and call for a motion.
I move that the Clackamas Water Environment Services Budget Committee approve the budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 in the amount of $272,831,514, with appropriations of $129,088,418 as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All right, please call the roll.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mr. Bowker?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
No.
Commissioner Schull?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Chair Morrow?
Aye. So that is, I believe, 7-1. That passes. All right, is there any other business before this committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming in today. We will stand at recess until 9:30. I want to thank the Budget Committee for being on time. Please note your schedule at the beginning of today's script. We will recess until 9:30.